If you've just joined us, we're going to start the presentation at 5 after 1. We're still allowing people to join us who have been in the waiting room. Thank you for your patience and understanding. If you've just joined us, thank you very much. We'll get started in about another minute or so. We're letting people come in from the waiting room. We appreciate your patience and understanding. We really appreciate everyone's patience. We're going to get started here today. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to join us for the King's Hammer Boys and Girls Central and South Pre-Academy program presentation. I'm Vince Gentili, the Director of Soccer Operations, and joining me today to lead the presentation will be Paul Nicholson, our Central Pre-Academy Director, and Chris Black, the Girls Academy Director, has also joined us to help moderate the presentation. Today we will go over the programming for the 2020-21 season and answer questions. Please type your questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Chris will put things together for us as we move forward. So thank you very much as we get started here. Here's the King's Hammer mission. Our mission is to positively impact the development of youth in our community by providing soccer and educational opportunities to young players of all ages and playing abilities, and to create a lifelong passion for the sport of soccer. We will play an active role in the leadership, development, and personal growth of our players and staff by being an active member of our community through service, partnerships, and programs. Our ultimate goal as a club is to encourage, inspire, and empower each player and coach to be able to reach the highest level possible within the game and their lives, while helping develop leaders and individuals who will inspire others to do the same. I'd like to introduce the core values of the club. All club leadership, coaching staff, and players will be guided by these core values. Respect, treat each person with dignity and courtesy. Creativity, do the right thing, follow the golden rule. Passion, energize, engage, and inspire yourself and others around you. Integrity, do the right thing, follow the golden rule. Leadership, empower yourself and others around you to enjoy success on and off the pitch. I'd like to show you King's Hammer by the number. And these are just some statistics on the club and the history of the club. They've had one U.S. Youth National title, 2 U.S. Youth National runner-up, some U.S. Youth Region 2 championships, several Ohio South and Kentucky State championships, as well as 6 Coach of the Year winners. Your journey begins now. What you see here is the cycle of a player through the King's Hammer programming. Some players might start in at our Little Lions program or our recreational program, which is our grassroots development. And those just vary by ages of the participant. Players would then get into our juniors program. And then from our juniors program, that leads into our youth program, which then leads into the PreA Academy, which we're here to talk about today, as well as the Academy program. So the PreA Academy and the Academy programs are geared towards the U11 through U19 player. I'd like to share with you the partners of King's Hammer. Our strategic partners include Nike as the kit provider, soccer.com as a virtual King's Hammer store, Demosphere and Playmetrics for club registration and communication platforms. Sports Recruits is used for college recruiting. Healthy Roster is for athlete injury management, and Beacon is our official kit sponsor. Here we'll kind of go through the King's Hammer directors. King's Hammer is directed and led by Kevin McCluskey, who's our Chief Operating Officer, Kevin Butler, Chief Branding Officer, Vince Gentili, I'm the Director of Soccer Operations, Dave McIver is our Senior Director of Events, Lisa McIver is our Tournament Director, Chris Black is our Girls Academy Director, James Thomas is the Academy Boys Director, Paul Nicholson is our Central Pre-Academy Director. Michael Ratliff is our Central Boys Youth Director. Ryan Hanbury is our Central Girls Youth Director. Michelle Okamura is our Little Lions Director. Simon Wigley is our South Director of Coaching for both boys and girls. Dan Ensley is our Bluegrass General Manager and Technical Director. Kelly Meyer is our Director of Communications. Ryan Gray is our Juniors Program Director. And Tony Capuro is our College Recruitment Coordinator and Volta Futsal Director. Now I'd like to turn things over to Paul Nicholson, the Central Pre-Academy Program Director.
Thanks, Vince. Before I get going, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone on the call for taking the time today to learn a bit more about the club and in particular the Pre-Academy program. The first thing I would like to cover is what exactly the Pre-Academy program is all about. And on the slide in front of you, you can see 3 key words that sum up the Pre-Academy program. The first one is flexible. We are flexible in regards to our players. We realize that there's a variety of levels within our program. We have players who have commitments outside of soccer. We have players who are just getting started in the game. And we have players who have high aspirations of kicking on and moving into our academy. And it's important that we aim to cater for these different needs. We're also flexible with our approach to each specific team and age group. Although our goal is always to form individual teams, in the past, based on registration numbers, we've offered pool age groups and combined age groups to provide more opportunities for players to play. We are also capable of bringing entire teams into the club for an initial year before they filter into pre-academy teams and academy teams. Developmental. The goal of our program is to develop our players both on and off the field and prepare them as best as possible for the future. We understand that each player is unique and that we must cater to that. And those players that need pushed will be pushed, and those that need time to develop will have that time within the program. We focus throughout on improving the fundamentals of the game, as this should be a constant area of focus no matter what the level of the player is. And lastly there, we have fun. We strive as a program, as coaches, and as a director myself, to create an environment that is both challenging and enjoyable. And we want this program to be a place where players can learn to love the game of soccer. Moving on here, we have our Central Boys coaching slate. I'm extremely pleased with both the boys and the girls coaches that we have coming back. I feel we've placed them in areas where they can be successful and they can really help their teams moving forward. I'll just move on to the girls slide, and we will have time at the end to go back to these pages if necessary. Here's the girls coaching slate, and as I said, we've really happy with the coaches that we've brought in. I feel like we've had experience, was already a strong coaching slate, and I think some of these new coaches will be a real asset for the program moving forward. Here on this slide, you can see the boys and girls South coaching slate. South director Simon Wigley couldn't be on the call today, so if you do have any questions for him, you can reach him at his email address, which is simon@kingshammer.com. Where you see to be announced, those coaches are currently working for other clubs, and until we are able to announce those coaches, we couldn't put it in to this presentation. The next slide here shows our program offerings, all the way from U11 to U19. Parents will pay a $1,000 fee no matter what the age group is. That fee will cover player registration and insurance. That also will cover one league fee, one referee fee, training and game field fees, as well as 2 times a week training with a professional coach. As you can see, the U11s to U14s season starts in August and goes through October. Then they'll take a break and they'll move into their spring season, which starts in May and ends in starts in March and ends in late May, early June. They will play typically 2 fall tournaments during that fall season and 1 in the spring, as well as a fall league and a spring league. Looking at the U15s to U19s, they're on a slightly different schedule to accommodate the high school season. So they start in November and they train for the month of November, and they typically play 1 tournament, which can be a showcase during that month. They'll then also take a break through the winter months, returning in March and playing a spring league that will run through to the end of May, beginning of June, and they'll also play their final 2 tournaments during that spring season. I've also added in there the trapped age group training. This is a team specifically set up for those U15 players that are still in the 8th grade and aren't willing or able to play at the high school level. Both the boys and the girls will be coached by Tyrone Jordan at a central location through the regular fall training period, August to October, before they join back up with their Kingshammer teammates for the November training period. This team will be made up of Academy, Central and South trap players, and based on numbers, there is potential to not only have training opportunities, but also to enter into trapped age group leagues and tournaments. More information will be announced during the summer leading up to this fall season. On this next slide, we can see the leagues, showcases and tournaments that a U11 and U14 or U15 to U19 team will participate in. The U11s to U14 teams will play either in the GCSL or the Buckeye Premier League, and the U15s to U19s will play in the Cardinal Premier League or the Buckeye Premier League. The decision will be made based on what is the best fit for that team, as we want to put teams in competitions where they are challenged appropriately. The same can be said for some of these tournaments that we select. The focus when identifying these specific tournaments and leagues is not just the level of play, but also the team, to keep the teams local. This will help reduce travel costs as well as reduce the time commitment placed on our families, which we realize now more than ever is very important. The next slide is our competition calendar, which will hopefully provide a clearer idea of what a year in the pre-academy, on a pre-academy team could look like. As you can see across the top, we have the leagues and the time that they run across. And on the bottom, we have our tournaments that we play in, and also when they are most likely going to be scheduled. Moving on from there, we have our central training and game facilities. The central programs will train and practice at Town and Country Sports Complex, and we use both the grass and the turf fields. We also have access to Brosett High School, where they've just laid down a brand new turf field there, and we also train at Four Seasons Kellogg Field. The South program in the past and moving into this next season in the fall have used Ryle High School, both turf and grass fields. They also train at Cooper High School, Erpenbeck Elementary, Goodridge Elementary, and Central Park. So the next step for those on the call, if you are interested in either the Central or the South Pre-Academy program, please register for the program as soon as possible. Registration is free and does not lock you into a particular team at this moment. The link to do this can be found on our website at kingshammer.com. And if you're watching this at a later date, it will be in the description on our YouTube channel. The registration, along with ongoing discussions between the coaching staff across the pre-academy and academy programs, will be the basis for how we form teams for the fall season, given the absence of a tryout. We will be trying to form the most competitive teams given the players registered. As discussed, those currently in the pre-academy program will at least have their spots on their previous teams as long as we have the numbers registered. It is crucial, therefore, that you register not only for the pre-academy program, but any program you wish your child to be considered for. For parents or players listening from outside the club who have an interest in joining Kings Hammer Soccer Club, you can also register at the same link. It is recommended that you contact the specific program director with information about the player. All program director information can be found on our website. And this concludes the presentation portion of the meeting. And at this time, myself and Vince will field any questions you may have regarding the program. Thank you.
Just a reminder to write in any questions into the chat, and we can have Paul and Vince facilitate any questions. So one of the questions that we have is for U15 and up goalkeepers that play high school soccer, will there be opportunities for keeper training through the club during the fall?
Say that again, Chris, you broke up. Sorry.
So the U15, for U15 and up keepers that play high school, will there be opportunities for keeper training through the club during the fall?
That isn't something that we have offered for the high school age groups in the past. There is potential for us to do that, and that's something that myself and Vince can address and discuss with those families.
Another question: will there be tryouts for players wanting to be considered for academy and pre-academy?
Unfortunately, we're not able to hold a tryout this year. As I mentioned, they're the registration numbers and and whatever we have seen in the previous fall or winter training will be the basis for what we go off to make the initial teams for the fall. That doesn't mean that when we do get back out in the field, we cannot take a look at players who are interested in coming and joining a particular program. We've done that in the past for sure, but right now we just can't hold the tryout, so we have to go off the information that we have.
Another question was, are the Red 1 and 2 teams always going to train together or separately?
My aim is always to have the Red 1 and Red 2 teams train at the same time, not necessarily together, no. We have had instances in the past where we've pooled age groups based on the registration numbers that we had to help facilitate that. But we wouldn't want 2 teams training together both nights a week. I feel like if we have 2 separate teams in an age group, it's nice to be at the same facility and to have the option to practice together. Perhaps you want to work on something for a game and you need the numbers. But we obviously understand that it is important that these teams train as a team. The majority.
Another question: is there a cap of number of players on each team?
Obviously, we have a unique situation with what's going on. I think that's a great question. Typically for 9v9, we can have anywhere between 12 and 14 players. For 11v11, probably 16 to 18 players is a typical size roster. But if we pool age groups or we combine age groups, that can sometimes differ. But what we are able to do is, again, be flexible with that situation, and we understand that large rosters aren't conducive. So we want to, we'll add perhaps another league. If it's a particularly large roster, we may add a coach. We may add tournaments to make sure the players are getting the game time that they want throughout the season. But ideally, like I said in the presentation, we always want to have an R1 team and an R2 team when possible in each age group. But we understand that, these are unusual circumstances and we may have to, combine age groups or pool players, but that's kind of a last resort. We want to try and create separate R1 and R2 teams.
Another question is, how will the players be evaluated coming from the fall season with no spring season?
Obviously, there's only the U11s to U14s got a full fall season in, and the U15s and above got the November training. We understand that was a long time ago. There can be a lot of development from there, but that's the information that we have to go off going into these tryouts or this registration period where we're making rosters. We understand that a lot can change in the time since we last were on the field. And like I said, we have committed to bringing back the players that are in the pre-academy onto their rosters. We will be speaking with the coaches in the age group, not only in the pre-academy, but also at the grey and potentially the blue level in the academy systems to move players where appropriate, because the goal ultimately from this period is to make the most competitive teams possible given the registration numbers. And again, it is really important that we do register so we can consider you or your child for teams.
Another question was, will there be movement during the year to balance out rosters in some of the age groups?
Yeah, there could potentially be movement throughout the fall. Our general plan will be kind of a pyramid as you will. Obviously, the boys will be slightly different than the girls in how they operate, but making sure the rosters are positioned in a way that we can move players up the pyramid is going to be important. So maybe we have slightly, not overly large rosters in the pre-academy, but understanding that there may be need for movement and flexibility to move players up into the academy throughout the fall.
Vince, we have a refund finance question, just pertaining to what if the fall season is canceled due to the COVID-19 issues? How will refunds and finances be handled?
Is Vince with us?
Vince,
Yeah, I think that what's the best way to answer that is that we're currently working through the credits and refunds and scholarship donations from this past season. Still trying to process all of that. We had to reopen the Google form because everyone did not complete the form as requested. So we have since that form will be closed on Monday. And since it was reopened, we've had another 500 people that have filled that out. So as you can imagine, that's going to be a bit of a process to go through everyone's information. We've not had any discussions about the fall season being canceled, just simply because we're trying to make it through the spring, and we're trying to get to the next stage of this, which is this registration phase for our players to return.
another one was, will there be goalkeeper training for U11, U12 age groups?
Yes, when we get back out in the field, there will be goalkeeper training for the U11 to U14 age groups in the fall. And then obviously when the older age groups, the U15s and above start, they will have goalkeeper training at that point as well.
Another question about refunds, Vince. Will we have a concrete refund knowledge before the deadline to sign up for the fall?
I know that they're processing all of that information right now. I believe that that's going to a long process, because we have to look at every individual player account. Every account is different. Certainly, the goal is to complete this process as quickly as possible, yet at the same time making sure that it's accurate to reflect each of the families accounts. So ideally we certainly would like to, but I don't know how far along they are in that process. Christy said she's working through that, daily and hoping to get it completed, but I don't know where her timeline is on the completion of that.
I think that's about all we have here.
All right.
Just going back through the coaching slate in case people wanted to see that as the South program again.
We realize there might be some additional questions that people might have after having gone through this presentation. or, you know, I'm going to say digesting the information. It's really important to reach out to your program director, whether that be Simon or Paul. Make sure we reach out to them with specific questions that might have been missed within this presentation here today, or that might come up later. If you have some specific questions about individual teams within the program, I think it's really important to address them with the program director, you know, through an email, as it relates specifically to that particular age group. It might just be easier to address. Anything else there, Chris or Paul?
No, I think we've covered everything there. You know, obviously I'm sure there are questions that pertain to particular individual circumstances or team circumstances, and I'm happy to answer those. And you know, if you want to email me directly, as Vince said, we can certainly discuss those separate from this meeting.
So if we need to reach out to our particular program director, Paul is the central pre-academy program director, and his email is paul@kingshammer.com. Simon is the Boys and Girls South director, and his email is simon@kingshammer.com. They would be the best to speak to with direct questions about their respective programs, as well as some teams that are within each of those programs. Any other questions, Chris?
One of the questions is about the U15. Why not have a fall season? I mean,
Well, the reason we don't have the fall season is to allow those kids to play high school. Following the high school, as we spoke about, we'll have a November month where we train. There's typically, excuse me, there's typically showcase tournaments that are held in that month that for some of our teams are necessary if players are wanting to move on and play college and things like that. So we try to get that month of training in, as well as a showcase tournament before they break till March, which would be 4 months. So obviously, you know, we feel like the more we're able to provide and give our players from a training perspective and playing perspective, the more they're going to develop. You know, and that extra month, I think, does that, rather than take, you know, 5 months off after the high school season before you play again in March.
the other one is date of deadline to register and find out about teams.
The registration is open right now, and according to Ohio South, which is our you know, youth soccer, which is essentially the governing body, they've created a timeline for all the clubs to follow, and on May 26th is essentially when people can begin making offers to players from within their club. And on May 29th, the clubs can begin making offers to players that are registered within their, you know, for their upcoming season who are not from within their club. So that's the timeline that we will be, you know, working off of. And we have to process all of the registrations to understand who's returning, in all of the programming and all the teams, and try to put together the numbers based off of those registrations to form the most competitive teams that we can. And the offer process will fall in line after the first allowed date that Ohio South has provided us with.
Another one, is there a competitive difference between Red 1 and Red 2, Paul?
Yes. We do, as I mentioned, have the flexibility to sometimes bring in entire teams from outside the club and then filter them into both the pre-academy and academy programs. In those instances, maybe there's not a difference, or perhaps there is a difference between what the level's like there, depending on what that team's like coming in from outside the club. But typically, we think of our R1 teams as being the fourth level within our club. So we have Academy Red, Blue, and Grey. Pre-Academy R1 would be the fourth tier, and Pre-Academy R2 would be the fifth tier.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions here today, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. We realize everybody is busy, but we hope that it has been that has been informational for you. And like I said, if you do have additional questions for your respective program director, please shoot them an email, and they'll be able to respond back to you as soon as they can. Paul?
Well, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to helping you with any of your concerns or questions that you have. And as Vincent, please reach out with any of those as soon as you can.
Thank you all.